All right, today we're diving into something that can make or break your entire analytics strategy: data warehouse design mistakes. Get these wrong, and your whole foundation can just crumble. But if you get them right, well, that's when you unlock some seriously powerful insights for your organization. So let's get into it.
So I'm guessing you're either building a data warehouse right now, or maybe you're trying to fix one that's just not quite hitting the mark. Either way, you know it's a massive undertaking and the pressure is on to get it right from the very start.
You know, the best way to think about your data warehouse design is to picture an architect's blueprint. A tiny little flaw in that initial plan doesn't just stay a tiny flaw. Nope. It's the kind of thing that can create a crack that runs through the entire foundation of your analytics strategy, causing huge problems down the road.
So let's start right there with the foundation. This first part is all about the core structural mistakes. The real nuts and bolts of your design that have to be absolutely solid.
Okay, first, let's just do a quick level set so we're all on the same page. Every data warehouse is built around two fundamental types of tables. You've got your fact tables, which hold all the numbers, the sales, the quantities, the what happened. And then you have dimension tables, which hold all the context, the who, what, where, and when that describe those numbers. The real magic happens when you bring them together.
Okay, mistake number one, putting descriptive text, like an order status, right into your fact table. I get why people do it. It seems easy, but it just bloats your most important table and makes it way bigger than it needs to be. The right way to do this is to move those miscellaneous text fields into what's called a junk dimension. Seriously, think of it like a utility drawer for your data. You just link to it, and that keeps your fact table clean, efficient, and way more scalable.
And here's another huge one: relying on keys from your original source systems. This is just so risky. I mean, what happens if that source system decides to change its key format? Your entire warehouse could just break. The solution is to create your own stable, integer-based surrogate keys. You control them, they never change, and bonus, your queries get a major performance boost because it's way faster for a computer to join simple numbers than it is to join complex text strings.
You absolutely have to clearly define the grain of every fact table. The grain is just the level of detail it represents. For example, you can't just toss daily student attendance records into the same table as marks that are recorded by the term. They have different grains. You have to either roll up the daily data to the term level or, just create separate tables. If you ignore this rule, you're just asking for chaos and completely wrong results.
Now, here's a trap that's really easy to fall into as your warehouse grows: creating separate, duplicate dimensions. Just imagine having one customer dimension for your sales data and a totally different one for your shipping data. Which one is right? You've now got two sources of truth. The solution here is to create a single, conformed dimension that the whole business uses. One customer table to rule them all.
All right, let's move on to part two. Now that we have a solid foundation, we've got to think about the people who are actually going to live in this house we're building, your business users. These next few mistakes are the ones that make a warehouse confusing and just plain frustrating to use.
Can you picture an executive staring at a report that says your top-selling demographic is M? What does that even mean? Back in the day, yeah, we used codes like M for male and F for female to save a few bytes of space. But come on, storage is cheap now. Clarity, on the other hand, is absolutely priceless. Always use full descriptive words. Your users are not database admins. They're trying to make critical decisions.
And here's another thing that drives users crazy: forcing them to calculate basic numbers on the fly. In a regular database, you might store quantity and unit price. But making your warehouse calculate the total sales amount every single time across millions of rows, that's incredibly slow. It forces the user to wait around and then do the same math over and over again for every analysis.
The better way is so much simpler. Just do the math ahead of time. Pre-calculate that sales amount and store it right in your fact table. It means your queries are going to be lightning fast and the analysis is instant. I'll say it again. Storage is cheap, but your user's time is definitely not.
Oh man, this is a big one. A lot of times the business will just hand you a big stack of their existing reports and say, "Here, build us a data warehouse that makes these." And that is a huge mistake. If you do that, you'll end up with a system that's super rigid and can only answer those specific questions. A real data warehouse needs to be a flexible analytics framework, one that's capable of answering questions you haven't even thought to ask yet.
And you have to remember, your average business user is not a SQL expert. They can't write complex multi-table joins. The data has to be presented to them in a really simple, denormalized way, often through something like an OLAP cube.
It's basically a pre-structured, user-friendly view of the data. The whole key here is to design for the user, not for the database purist.
Okay, on to our final section. Let's talk about future-proofing. These are the mistakes that might not bite you on day one, but trust me, they will absolutely come back to haunt you and compromise your warehouse's performance and longevity down the line.
So what happens when a customer moves to a new city? If you just update their record in the database, you've completely lost the history of where they used to live. And that's a massive problem for historical analysis. The fix is to plan for what we call slowly changing dimensions, or SCDs. It's a design pattern that preserves those historical changes, giving you a true, accurate picture of the past.
When queries start to get slow, what's the first impulse? Usually it's just to throw more hardware at the problem, right? And sure, that might give you some temporary relief, but it's just a band-aid. It's not a cure. The real cure is a better design from the get-go that uses smart techniques like aggregates, proper indexing, and modern tech like column stores. That's how you fix the root cause.
And finally, here's a mistake that just directly hurts your user's ability to do analysis: splitting up natural hierarchies. Think about a product. Its category, its subcategory, and its name all belong together in one dimension. If you split them up into separate tables, you make it incredibly difficult for users to do one of the most basic things they want to do, which is drill up and down through the data.
So we've looked at all these different ways things can go wrong. What's the one golden rule here? What's the ultimate takeaway from all this?
Well, it really just comes down to these three pillars. First, you need a solid technical structure. Get the grain, the keys, and the tables right. Second, you need a relentless focus on the user, designing for clarity and making it easy to use. And third, you need a long-term vision that plans for change, performance, and scale right from day one.
At the end of the day, you have to remember that you are not just building a database to power a few reports. You're building a flexible, powerful framework that's going to empower your entire organization to ask and answer really complex questions for years to come.
So I'll leave you with this final question. When you really look at your own design, is it a solid, future-proof framework built on a strong foundation? Or is it a fragile house of cards, just waiting for one of these common mistakes to bring the whole thing tumbling down?